Ugh, Sunday morning hangovers. What can you do when you're hungover on a Sunday? I know, let's do a little project to do with our site radios. So it's not an electrical video, this is a how to ruin your site radio video, probably. We have two site radios. We have the little Ryobi one here and a Makita. Let's face it, FM radio's rubbish, isn't it? Just rubbish. You may have seen, if you follow my nonsense on Twitter, that I'm slinging Ryobi in favour of Makita. Good kit, Ryobi. I do like it. The multi-saws have let me down, and so I decided that because my batteries are now getting quite old. When's this one? This is a 2018 one. Oh, that's not as old as I thought it was. I figured that I may just change ecosystem and go with what Nigel uses, and he's on Makita. So although I hate the blue colour, I'm on Makita, which brings me to these two site radios. Now Nigel and I, we each have different tastes in music. Nigel listens to rubbish and I listen to decent stuff. Nigel likes some band called Bonefish. I don't know who they are. If you've ever heard of them, no one else has ever heard of them. Fucking Bonefish. So I've got this, what we were using, this is a AM/FM radio. Obviously we don't use the AM/FM because it's unlistenable. It's not very good either, this. So if you do have it on FM, it seems to sort of detune itself, so it'll go for 5 minutes sometimes and then you're just getting static out of it. I don't know why that is. With Bluetooth, and that's the bit that's handy on here, because although Nigel and I have different tastes in music, what we can do with the Bluetooth, of course, is to select a streaming station, something that breaks the monotony of the day, puts a bit of background noise on, but doesn't particularly concentrate on one genre. So I can't do, for example, Planet Rock, which Nigel would like, because I can't abide rock music. And similarly, Nigel wouldn't allow me to listen to a station that just deals with the sort of just plays the electronic music that I tend to favour. So we can find a station that will play a sort of variety of stuff, stream it through our mobile phone to the Bluetooth speaker. All well and good, and we can carry on doing that, I suppose. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't just keep that going. We've still got the battery to use it with, but we do also have this Makita thing. Nigel bought this at a Lex in Coventry a few years ago, and you can see it's actually done rather well. They are good, tough radios. You see a lot of tradespeople with them. They will survive in the back of the van. They're very tough. The top of his area was come off, but that's the only thing that's broken on it. So this has been rattling around in the back of the van, and we used to listen to BBC Radio 6 music because that's a DAB station, and this thing has DAB, which was fine until last year when they changed their lineup, and now Radio 6 is also unlistenable. It was always a bit funny, Radio 6. You'd get some right weird stuff on there, but again, there was enough variety for us to cope with. And now it's just rubbish now. The presenters are dreadful, especially in the morning. So we kicked Radio 6 out of bed, which leaves us sort of stationless. We want to be able to stream music, but we can't stream it to this because although it has DAB, it doesn't have Bluetooth, which is why the Ryobi saw a lot of use, and why this has been sitting around for months doing absolutely nothing at all, because it can offer us nothing in terms of entertainment. Enough blab. Let me show you what I'm going to do today. If I turn this on, I have to turn this down so that it doesn't actually play any music, of course, because I can't possibly be told off by YouTube for violating some rich bastard's copyright because there were 10 seconds of some music on there or whatever. This band button switches between DAB, FM, and that's about it. But there are another two inputs on here. We have an auxiliary input at the front, and in the rear compartment we have an auxiliary connection at the rear. There's also this curious USB port, but I think that's for firmware upgrades. I don't think we can get anything out of that, but if you plug a device into one of either the front or the rear aux slots, then when you press the band button you can toggle between DAB, FM and the aux that you plug the device into. So the act of plugging in a 3.5mm jack will cause the aux menu option to appear. So it got me thinking, well, if we have aux, then obviously the easiest way to Bluetooth this thing up is to simply buy a Bluetooth receiver that one may plug into the aux port. The interesting is there's nowhere to power it from, so you'd have to have one that has its own battery, which is then another thing to have to charge up and another thing to have to carry around. What I'd rather do is have it all built in, and that's what I'm going to attempt to do today with this. This is a Bluetooth receiver, which I've had in use on my stereo at home or my speakers at home for a while now. But I'm going to dedicate it to this task, and what we have here on the rear is a 5V USB input to power the thing, a Bluetooth pairing button and an auxiliary out jack. And what I want to do is I want to integrate this into here so that this radio can be brought back into commission, can go back on the van, and we can zap over our tunage of choice. Exciting times, eh? First of all, we have to get into the thing. If we open it up, I've already removed the battery, of course, but in the back here we have 2 screw holes containing screws, so we'll have them out. It's annoying, isn't it, local radio on FM, and how useless it is. It used to be that local radio, we had Mercia Sound here covering Coventry and Warwickshire, and it used to be truly local content, stuff that was made for that local audience. A local radio station for local people. And you had presenters that knew the area and talked of the area and played whatever music they wanted, but it's all been overtaken now by larger organisations who've consolidated it all. So your local radio station, can't get this last screw up. Your local radio station isn't really that local anymore. You'll have your local news, and you might have a local breakfast presenting team, and there'll be the odd show that's made for your area, but most of it is just national content. It's the same being broadcast all over the place. And the trouble is, it doesn't matter whether you're listening to Free Radio or Heart or Capital or whatever, it's all the same friggin' kiddie content. Well, I've got one screw out. The other one's in there, but it's loosened, it didn't seem to want to come out at the moment. Maybe that will drop out later. So when you're an old fart like Nigel and I, and you just want some background music, you don't want to hear Justin Bieber or God knows what it is. And music today, I hate to sound old, it's so boring. It's just boring. No imagination. We've run out of ideas. Right, I've loosened that screw, but I can't get it out. So I've undone two screws at the rear there. And I'm going to take out these 4. As I say, this is Nigel's radio, so if this all goes to cock and I break it, I just won't tell him I've done this. And we're in. Oh, that screw's finally fallen out. Awful lot of empty space in there, isn't there? Well, I suppose there's not really, is it? The good beefy speakers on these things. So obviously that's where the battery connects there. We've got not a lot of discrete components to play with. There may be some on the other side of that board. And then we've got our USB and audio jack there, which is this auxiliary input number 2 that I've got an interest in today. Another problem with local radio not really being local is the adverts. Oh my god, the adverts do my head in. They'll play like 3 songs and then they'll have 5 minutes of adverts, and that's because again it's all national. So they can't just put a couple of adverts between each song or whatever. They have to do it so that they can play, say, 3 songs and then hand the station back to the local advertising, however it works. So you get 5 minutes of local adverts and they just go on and on and on, and I can't be dealing with it. This Bluetooth thing that I'm going to shoehorn in needs 5 volts. I'm not sure if I've got 5 volts anywhere on here. Obviously it's run from an 18 volt battery. So what I need to do is to power it up and have a little poke around and see if I can find somewhere suitable that I can take a source from. Let's turn her on Got the TIS E247 meter here, set to DC volts, and I'm just going to have a little poke around and see if I can't find somewhere where I could potentially attach my Bluetooth receiver to. Right, that took a few minutes. What I was after here was ideally a 5-volt source. I don't. There may well be one in here somewhere, but I haven't uncovered one. Quite awkward, this sort of board, because obviously it's a soft switch, which means that when the battery's in, a lot of this has power all the time. So there's our, I got it the wrong way around, but there's our sort of, it's an 18-volt battery. I read 19.7 volts from the battery tags itself. That goes to this board. So this board always has power when the battery's connected, and obviously we don't want our Bluetooth receiver to always be powered, because it's just going to drain the battery. But the board's got power because it's waiting for someone to come along and push the switch to wake it all up. So we need to find something that hasn't got power when the radio is off. It's one of these devices there, it's never truly off, as most soft switch push button type devices are. So there's various points I've been trying around. I'm going to pick a point where I seem to have some electricity to play with when the thing is powered on, and regardless of what the volume setting is. And we've got some capacitors on the side of the board here, and just putting my voltmeter across this one. We've got power on there, we're off at the moment. As you can see, I'm getting 0. I hope you can see that's not the best camera angle, is it? So I'm getting 0 volts across this capacitor when the battery's in, but when it's switched off. And if I turn it on, the display is now lit up, and I'm now getting 19.6 volts I'm reading there. 19.7 volts. So I'm getting about best part of 20 volts across this capacitor when it's on. And when I turn it off, I'm getting nothing at all. It's also a couple of decent solder points there, so I can use that. It's something that I can get my soldering iron easily onto to drive my Bluetooth receiver. Now I don't know what function that capacitor has in terms of the wider scope of this board. I will be drawing an extra few milliamps to drive my Bluetooth receiver, and I've got to hope, of course, that adding on this extra circuitry to that point doesn't have a detrimental effect on the overall performance of the thing. We'll just have to suck it and see, I guess. Okay, the screws are back in. I don't need to get to the other side of that board again. I've got my 2 solder points just here that I'm going to be using to get some power from. Now obviously the best part of 20 volts isn't going to do my little Bluetooth receiver much good, because this only requires 5. So what I'm going to use, and a bit of upcycling here, is a 5-volt regulator. It's got 3 pins on it: input, ground and output. Input and ground I shall connect across the 2 terminals here, observing the polarity, of course, so it will go that way around. 20 volts will go in. You've got your ground pin in the middle, and coming out on the right hand side pin will be a nice clean 5 volts, which ought to do the job. That's rated up to 1 amp, this 7805 regulator, and it has got a rear where you can attach a heatsink. It's not going to need one here because this thing only takes a few milliamps, so this will quite easily cope with it. Let's have a little closer look at this, shall we? I've taken the screws out of this so we can peek inside. Oops. And what we've got in here, I'm going to retain the enclosure. I'm not going to take this PCB out, so it is going to sit in there as is, but I'm going to make some modifications to it. What we're going to have to do, obviously, we're going to have to connect something to our 5-volt plug there. I might just bastardise an existing micro USB lead rather than soldering wires directly onto this PCB, because it looks like it's very fiddly to work with. Same for the aux out. I might just plug a 3.5mm jack in there. I could hardwire the wires onto this PCB, but I think that's probably more trouble than it's worth. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along, so we'll figure something out. There are 2 modifications that I've realised I'm going to have to make though. First of all, we have an LED here to indicate the status of the pairing, which, if this is located inside here, no one's going to see it. You really need to be able to see that to know whether you're successfully paired to the thing or not. potentially. It's nice to have that visual indication, so I'm going to have to bring this LED out and have it presented somewhere on the outside of the Makita case. Same for the pairing button, or the all-important pairing button. If I leave this inside the case, of course, I've got no way to tell this to pair to my phone or whatever. Obviously I can prepare it before I put it in, but if we need to, if I ever change my phone, I don't have to get the screwdrivers out to have to push that button to repair it to my new phone. So I'm going to have to bring this push switch out on a couple of flying leads, and again present that on the case somewhere on the Makita case. Before I do that, I showed earlier that there's this is the aux 2 3.5mm jack inputs. Okay, and it's a case of either do I bring a jack to jack lead from here outside and then plug it in, or not. I don't like the idea of doing that, because that plug poking into there will get in the way of me sliding the battery in and out. I'd prefer it if we could do it so that this Bluetooth thing is truly integrated into the case. The trouble is, as I said earlier, when you fire this bad boy up, the band button flicks between the DAB and FM, but doesn't show up the auxiliary inputs unless there's something plugged into the auxiliary inputs. However, if I unplug the auxiliary input at the rear, well, now watch what happens. DAB, FM, aux into. Ah. And that's because the jack has a little switch which feeds back to say whether something is physically plugged into it or not. So when I unplug that, then I'm effectively taking that little contact out of circuit. So it fools the radio into thinking something is inserted into the jack, and it presents it now as a valid menu option that I can select on my input selection. Let's just take this out, shall we? The best bet is to perhaps take this out and leave it out. White is left, black is ground, yellow is right. So the red here is what's telling the radio when there's something connected to the jack, so I can forget about the red one, and then I just need to connect the yellow, white and black to a 3.5mm plug, which I can plug into here. I could connect those wires directly onto here if I wanted to get this PCB out and solder them directly on, which I might do, I don't know, I haven't decided yet. I'll have to see what leads I've got lying around. So I can connect that directly to my Bluetooth doodly-dardly, and it ought to be a valid permanent menu option on the screen now with that red wire left disconnected. It should always be there on the band select button as aux input 2 being available. Removing this thing also gives us a handy hole at the back here. So if I turn this around, let's get the battery out. We're left with a hole here, and as I said, I'm going to need to bring this Bluetooth pairing switch out, and look what I've got here out of my junk drawer. It's a push to make switch which ought to fit rather nicely into there to give me my Bluetooth pairing button. All I've got to do is wire that off in parallel with the switch contacts on here, and it shouldn't foul the battery going in and out. It should be enough room there for the battery not to hit it. So I think that will work as rather a tasty solution. The only question now then is, where do I put that Bluetooth LED? So I've just popped in a hole there through the plastic for my LED, which puts it close up against the rubbery bit here. Mechanically we're prepared now, aren't we? We've got somewhere to put the LED, we've got somewhere to put the switch, we've got somewhere to take power from. So what I'm going to have to do now is I'm going to have to get this LED out of here onto some flying leads, get my switch connected in parallel with this push to make switch here, figure out what I'm doing regarding the connectivity for power and audio, and then start bolting all this together. There we go. I'll put some 0.25mm super thin wire onto my push to make switch. Obviously it's carrying next to no current, so I don't need anything too hoofadoo free on there. Had I mentioned that I'm a little hungover today? This is one of those Sunday projects you think, okay, I haven't got the mental capacity following last night to think too hard about something, so let's do something that ought to be fairly straightforward and not too taxing on the old grey matter. Speaking of which, what am I doing? I've already forgotten. I should take my switch and I shall thread these through here before I forget. No, I won't, because that's to go on from that side, doesn't it? Yes. Concentrate, David. I'll tell you what, if that goes on there, that would be just the perfect fit. Talk about made for the job. Isn't that marvellous? There's our pairing switch. And hopefully it's not going to foul the battery. No, look at that, battery insertion and removal without fouling the switch. And the case even closes. Made for the job. Well pleased with that. Fresh from the rain, so it's a rainy old Sunday. And off the van we have the old hot melt glue gun. Nothing says professional hacking modification like a hot melt glue gun. I might put a bit on the back of that switch just to stop it from rotating. I found in my scrap box a 3.5mm jack to jack cable. And the reason it's in my scrap box is because there's no continuity on one of the poles there. So it's a duff cable and it was going to go into the recycling, so what I'll do is I'll chop these off and hopefully one of these ends is good, and then that can be I can plug into my Bluetooth adapter and I can hardwire that in then, just like that, as Tommy Cooper would say. Oh, one's on the floor. So we should have a screen wire. This middle one here is doing nothing, so this may be our faulty end. And the end one. So it's the white wire, isn't it? The end one's red, the middle one's white, and the middle one's shite. So that can go in the bin. Let's pick up the one on the floor, which is hopefully good. Green wire, yep. Red wire, yep. White wire, magnificent. So I've got me a jack lead and a bit of upcycling. Right, sorry if the camera angle just changed between shots there. I just knocked the tripod, but what I've decided to do, I was wondering how to connect this up. I don't want to cut this connector off, which is obviously perhaps one of the easiest ways, because I can just join the wires together. I don't want to cut this connector off though, and I don't really want to leave this little jack PCB out, because you never know, we might want to uncock this in the future and put it all back to how it was. What I've done is I've put this PCB back on, I've cut the red wire so that AUX2 input is still on the menu, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little jack lead here and I'm going to solder it directly onto the back of the PCB here, and then we'll just sort of hot glue that out the way somewhere so it's all there, and if we ever want to return this, restore this back to how the Makita gods intended, then we can do so. So I'm just going to solder that on now. Just to make sure that I haven't cocked anything up operationally. I suppose what I ought to do is plug this in to my mobile phone here, get the battery and everything, and make sure that AUX input is doing what it's supposed to be doing. Yes. I can't play any more than that for copyright reasons. I'm not even sure if I can get away with that, but hopefully no one's going to come along and accuse me of being a robbing bastard for playing those few seconds of whatever that was. But I can confirm it is working. We are getting stereo sound out, and hopefully, yes, the radio still works. Jolly good. So let's get a bit of hot melt glue just on the back of that switch, just to help keep that from rattling loose. Same on here. Give it a good old splurging. Good stuff this, isn't it? And then we'll just sort of shove this into the case somewhere. Always satisfying to pick the strands off, isn't it, of that hot melt glue stuff. So I've just glued that onto the side of this thing here. Let me just make sure it's not going to foul anything. Obviously, if working on something like this, always make sure the battery's out. What you don't want to do is end up shorting out the battery or anything while you're faffing and prattling around. No, that's fine. That's just the job. So that's in place. That's our audio connection ready to go. Right, I think this just, yep, there we go. And clips out of there. Marvellous. I've got all these socket outlets and I'm still short, so I've just had to plug my microphone in because the battery was running out, and there was a danger that I was going to end up talking to myself, and that would be horrendous for you all, wouldn't it, if you couldn't hear my dulcet tones. Because an LED, being a diode of course, is polarity sensitive, I need to make sure I identify which is what, so I'm going to just put a marking on the cathode. I've also drilled a hole into the case of this where the LED used to sort of hide behind. There was never a hole there before. You could see the LED through the case. It looks black, but it's kind of translucent. You can just about see through it. I've left them quite long at this stage because where the LED is going to be is not necessarily near where the enclosure is going to be. To help. Oh, Jesus, that's hot. Yeah, well, I can confirm that my glue gun has warmed up. Oh, I'm going to put these through my drilled hole. Put a bit of a knot in to act as a bit of strain relief while I carry on prepping the belt. And then trim these and get them connected. You know what, my eyesight's going. I had laser surgery 20 years ago to correct short-sightedness. It's been marvellous. But as of 2020, I'm having trouble seeing up close. So yes, I'm going to have to start wearing glasses soon, I rather fear. There we have it. LED is connected. Here are my switch wires. So they can go in the same hole. We can also have a little strain relief knot. This is all very daft, isn't it? Why don't I just use my bloody Ryobi radio? Why am I bothering with all this? So hopefully if I push my button on there, we should, I was going to say we should be able to pick up with the continuity test on here, but this is again where I need that third hand I haven't got. And if I did have it, it would just be in my pocket all the time scratching my nuts, so it's probably for the best. So I'm going to assume that works, because assumption is, nothing wrong with assumption, is there? Assumption always works. I'm going to assume that that switch is connected up okay now. Now I should be able to close this whole assembly back up. I just want to put a bit of glue again on these contacts, just to make sure those wires don't come off. I hope this works, otherwise I'm ruining a perfectly good Bluetooth receiver and a perfectly good DAB radio. I mean, I'm not bothered about the radio because it's Nigel's of course, but this receiver was in use on my own stereo, providing a rather handy function. I'm going to have to buy another one now. Jolly good show. 4 screws to pop back into here. Super smashing great. So there's our receiver with LED. I've got no idea whether this is going to work in here, or whether there's going to be any interference or any problems. This is all part of the joy of tinkering and finding out. We'll see later on whether the bugger can actually get a signal properly in there, or whether it's all just been a complete waste of my Sunday. But anyway, what I'll eventually do is basically glue that in. So this LED wire then comes through to the LED which sits there. One sacrificial USB cable. I'm sure I've got cut ends somewhere, but I just can't find them. It's one of those where I know everything is in the office until I tidy it up, and then I don't know where I've put things. And I did have a tidy up, so the drawer that I thought they were in, they're not in. I'm sure they're somewhere very safe, and I'm sure I'll find it 5 minutes after I've finished making this flipping video. I'm going to use this cable, which is a perfectly serviceable cable, because it's one of those that does a really rubbish job of charging. If I plug my tablet into it, I get a charge current of like 250 milliamps, whereas if I use a different cable I can get 850 milliamps or whatever my meter reads. So all I'm interested in really is this end. I'll keep that because you never know. I should put it in my drawer. Something might come up. Give myself a bit of wiggle room on it. Let's take a look inside here. Again, this Bluetooth thing that only needs a few milliamps. So obviously we've got our red and black there. There's no it's interesting. There's no data lines in this. I wonder where I got that from. This must just be for charging then, this. I expected 4 wires to have been in there. It's getting a bit dark in here. This is taking much longer than I thought. Let's put the office lights on. You know, when you have these, you wake up with a hangover and think, what shall I do today? You know, I won't do anything that requires too much thought. I'll just potter about, as blokes do, in my man cave, staying out the way of the wife and kids, and do something half interesting that ought to work, but probably won't. This is my 7805 voltage regulator, which I introduced earlier. We're going on to these 2 points here. That one's positive, that one's negative. So the first one will go to my input pin, the second one will go to my ground pin, the third one will go to my red wire. And then the black wire I should take to this point here, which is electrically connected to these. Obviously the back of the PCB is largely just ground. So if I put that on continuity, you can't see that, can you? This is a rubbish camera angle, I do apologise. That negative side of that capacitor is connected to this point, and indeed to lots of points on this board, because most of the back of the board is just all connected together. I'll be quite smart if this doesn't work after all this. There'll be people who work in electronics looking at me doing this going, what the hell? Yeah. You've got to remember that this isn't anything official here, this is just me messing around. You just have to take it or leave it, I'm afraid. My crap eyesight doesn't help either, because I really can't focus anymore on it. I used to have such good vision, and it's only this year. Look at that, I can't see that, I can't focus on it. That's my focal point there. Bloody hell. Wow. Old age, huh? I shall have to get myself down to the opticians. This is a used regulator. I don't know what it's been used on. I've got some unused ones in my drawer, but what the hell. Let's give this one a new lease of life, whatever it did before. I presume it works. I haven't checked it works actually. I'm just going to sort of jerry-rig this onto the back of here. So what I'm going to do is the output leg I'm going to extend forward to give me something to attach my wire to. And then hopefully I can just get those 2 input legs there. I'll move the camera up a little bit. Hopefully I can get the 2 input legs there, and it shouldn't foul anything going back into the case. I didn't show it on camera, but I have also had the oscilloscope on these contacts here, because obviously the voltmeter gives me a voltage reading, but if it's pulsing, the voltmeter's not really necessarily going to pick that up. But the oscilloscope showed that it was flat. Flat, best part of 20 volts, and only on when the device is switched on. Which should be ideal for my purposes. There we go. One simply needs to attach the red wire to the output pin. And what we ought to have now is 5 volts coming out of here. So that is going to plug into here. This then needs to be held in place in here, so I've got to work out mechanically how I'm going to do that. I'll just resort to yet more hot glue. I probably do. Quick. I'll just anchor it where I can anchor it. Obviously I won't put all the screws back in just yet because I want to see it working first. That's always the way to jinx something, isn't it? Is to put all the screws back in and assume you're finished. If I do that, I can guarantee it won't work, but if I leave the screws out, then odds on we might just be alright. Okay, right, I've got my tablet and I've picked a YouTube channel where I've spoken to the owner of the channel, and they're quite happy for me to play this music that they themselves have recorded. So it's a royalty-free job, and I shouldn't get slapped down with any copyright crap. Let's fire this up and see what happens, shall we? Now this tablet was previously paired to this Bluetooth receiver, so there's a good chance that I won't have to go through the pairing, but I'll do it anyway. In fact, let's tell... Bluetooth light's on. That light should be pulsing, as indeed it is, to indicate that Bluetooth is powered but not paired. Should get a rapid flash if I press the pairing button. Do I have to hold it in? I can't remember. Probably. Oh, no, it is working. It's not a long press, it's a quick press. Oh, what's it doing? Yeah, there you go, look at that. Whew! Okay, let's come up on here. Pairing. Pair. No, you don't need to access my chord history, thanks very much. We are connected. Oh my god, a massive spider's down here. I'm just going to have to go and get the spider catcher. I shouldn't be a wuss because we don't have any dangerous spiders here. It's not like it's bloody Australia or anything, is it? But we normally see these in autumn, not in March. Well, sorry fella, but you're going to have to go outside whether you like it or not. Right, where was I? You wouldn't want that up here, would you? Right, okay. So the blue light is now stationary. It's not flashing because we are paired. In fact, you know what? I'm going to do that again because I just want to make doubly sure that this does actually do the shimon. Right, so... No, don't connect. Forget. You are forgotten. Pulsing away. I did a quick press. Yes, quick press. Oh, thank goodness for that. Pair new device. And it should present itself as GT Bluetooth Receiver 55. Don't know where it gets that number from. Pair away. Volume's on 15, and there's no buzzing, no funny noises coming out of it, so that's always a good start as well. Let's go back to Yow Chow. I'm not normally one for piano music, but again, this is something that I've been allowed to play. And you know what? It's coming out by the speakers. I'll link to this channel in the description as a thank you. If you, it's not got many subscribers, I don't think, but if you like your piano music, sounds alright, doesn't it? Job's a good one. And if I hit the band button,
Really lucky and happy to be a part of such a wonderful
DAB's working.
All around the world. Phoenix to the
FM's working, can't play that. Back to aux in 2. You know, with the volume up, I'm hearing a bit of a whine on the line. Is that just the proximity of my tablet? I don't know. Job's not a good one. I'll just have a close look at where the wires are running in there, see if I can't move them about a bit. Obviously I've had to take this out again, because as I said, gluing it in was always going to be the death knell of the thing. The whining noise is on the power line. If I plug this in to an external... Oh, for goodness sake. What does this bubblehead want? Nicholas?
Dino Savo. How's it hanging?
Well, to the right, I think, at the moment. I don't know, these YouTubers. Right, where was I? Yeah, so it's the noise is coming in off the line here. If I connect this to an external power source, it works fine. So I'm not sure why that is at present. Oh, how frustrating is this? And the bloody Bluetooth board's packed up. I don't know why, because obviously it was all in and working, and then all of a sudden I noticed that my voltage regulator was getting a little bit toasty. So I've brought in my bench power supply here, short circuit protected. I've limited the current, and it's you can see by the voltage dropping down. Something shorted on the board, so I've undone my modifications. I've taken my switch off, taken my LED off on their flying leads. I know it's not the power cable at fault, because that's, if I use a different cable on a different supply I get the same issue. So something's gone wrong with my Bluetooth board. I guess it just didn't like me cocking around with it, which is a damn shame, isn't it? But something on here has failed. It was all working, just like there was just that whine on the line. And now I'm going to have to frigging get another Bluetooth board. Fortunately, I have a second one of these, which is on another stereo, so already I'm going to do myself out of being able to use my stereos if I blow this one up as well. Quite a different construction to the first one. This was, I think, an older model by the looks of it, because they've obviously redesigned it. It's got a load of electrolytic capacitors dotted around in that one, whereas that's a much neater board design. So, same thing, they were bought quite close apart about 5-6 years ago. The only difference is, apart from the board layout, this has a green LED rather than a blue one, so I'll have to just check that, because some LEDs require a different voltage, slightly different voltage. I know the blue one, I've just tested it on the power supply here, doesn't light until it gets a good sort of 2.5 volts across it, whereas the green might blow up if it's got more than sort of 2 volts, or might last so long. So I'm just going to have to check that, because it's already a ball lake that I've got to change the board. I'm going to resolder the switch and the LED wires to it. It'll be a further ball lake if I have to take that out as well and change it to the green LED, but we'll give it a try. I'm just a bit worried because, like I say, I don't know why that one's packed up. I mean, it maybe my cack-handed soldering did something to it, but it was all working. Talk about not catching a break. Can you believe that? It doesn't work with the blue LED, or at least the blue LED is not lighting up. So, as far as modifying this thing goes, I am having to pretty much start from the beginning. The only thing I'm going to have to replace is the bloody switch. So let's hope that still works, eh? I'll tell you, it's because I put hot melt glue everywhere. Should never have done that until I tested it thoroughly. Right, we're all back together again. So this is the new receiver with its green LED. You can see that on camera. It's glowing away to say it's powered but not paired. drawing about 10 milliamps. Let's power it on from this external supply. Let's see if we get any noise on the line. Oops. Nothing. It is on, I can hear a hiss from the speakers, but there's no whining noise. So I'll put my voltage regulator back on, I'll reconnect the supply, and we'll see if this thing makes a noise like the last one did. Right, let's get this back together again. One other change I've made on the regulator, I don't know if you can see it there, I've put a 0.1 microfarad capacitor on the output of the thing. I don't expect that to make any difference. I think there's still going to be a bit of hum on this one, and I don't think there's anything I can do about it. This particular Bluetooth receiver is an older one to the one that I killed, and as always had a bit of a noisy line when it's not playing music, when it was connected to my other stereo, so I don't know whether they improved the board when they changed it, or whether I'm just chasing something I'll never find here, or whether I'm missing something obvious. But I expect there to be a bit of noise on this one. Let's put it back together. I haven't put the screws in the rear yet, I'm not going to do that, because again, that's always the killer, isn't it? We'll turn it on, we should have a green light. That doo-doo-doo-doo tone is the thing waking up. If you turn the volume high enough, you can hear a hum. You wouldn't ordinarily have the volume that high anyway, not with it doing nothing anyway. But that, like I say, that one's always done that. We can see the green light's pulsing. Super, we're connected. And once again, let's fire up. Still some noise on the line. Works. Just that noisy line. I don't think there's anything I can do about it. Intrigued to know if anyone's got any ideas in the comments on whether that can be addressed in any way. But otherwise, a fairly successful project, which took far longer than I expected it to. Right, well, we'll have to take it out to site now and blast something loud out of it, won't we? Anyway, that's enough of this. I'm going to play Fortnite or something. Have a hair of the dog. Just one more bit to finish this off. Here's the tablet there. This thing's been going for about 2 hours now, and the radio's all the way over here at the other end of the room, so the range is really good. It's currently broadcasting an ambient sort of what the wife would call a drear channel. Ambient musical nonsense. Walks into, I've made a little label that says, let's turn that to the light, that says Bluetooth, and just covers over the light as it pulses away. And in the rear, where the new button is, I've put a label that says pair. But like I say, it's been jingling away for about 2 hours now, and there's no sign of that's funny buzzing or anything, so it seems to be really good. I'm really quite pleased with that. It's a shame I killed one of those Bluetooth modules doing it. I'll have to buy myself a couple more now for my stereos, but yeah, works like a charm. Success! And only took all day, somehow. Oh, that's booze for you. One final thing to mention. I said that the Bluetooth receiver I used in this project was dates back to about 2014. And the reason I bought it, as I said, was that it was on a different stereo of mine. In fact, it was on this stereo, which is a circa 1981 Ghetto Blaster, whose tape player no longer functions, but I still wanted, because it looks cool, to be able to use it as a means of blasting out some sounds. So what I did back in 2014, in my pre-YouTube days, so I don't have any video of it unfortunately, although there is an article on the internet describing how I did it, which I might link to in the description. I did this exactly the same sort of thing. I tapped off a 5-volt source from inside. I believe I used a regulator at the time, connected up the stereo jack to where the tape head took in its audio, and basically now when you switch this thing on, as long as you've got the tape function selected on the selector, it will actually take in audio via this stereo jack. In fact, I believe, if I remember rightly, it was a long time ago, I think I took as an audio source, an input, aux input on the back here. That's what the jack was connected to. And the stereo receiver, rather than being internal, the Bluetooth receiver, rather than being internal, was on the side here. It was hot glued to the side, and that's the one that I've robbed for this project. So, went on to Amazon and I got myself a replacement so that I could get this back into business. And what I've got here is this TP-Link NFC thingamajig. I should put an affiliate link to it in the description. The interesting thing about this, compared to the device I've used, is that had I bought this for the job, I would have made life a bit easier. There's no pair button on this. The way it works is you pair it, or it's always broadcasting to say I am here, and then you can pair your phone to it or your tablet, whatever, and connect to it. And then to disconnect, you disconnect from your phone menu and then get another device, and you can pair with it from another device. So there's no pair button to press to put this into pairing mode. It's kind of always in pairing mode unless it's actually communicating with something, which is interesting. So that would have got rid of the pairing issue. Probably would have been harder to get the LED out of this one for the visual input. What I might have done had I used this on this project is perhaps still located this either externally or inside in such a way that the light could be seen in some way, drilled through the case perhaps, and put some kind of clear plastic piece in to send the light to the outside. I don't know. What I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to stick it on the side of the stereo to bring this back into action. Another nice thing about this is it has NFC, as did my last one, but it also comes with this little NFC tab which you can adhere to the outside of your stereo or whatever. So if this were fitted inside the unit, I could have had that on the outside of the unit to make pairing even easier for NFC enabled devices. So that's quite interesting as well, and that's obviously a more modern take on the thing that I bought in 2014. But yes, this is something I've done before. I did it with this and it's worked very successfully since, and now it's working with Nigel's stereo. Jolly good show. What a glorious afternoon. I might put some music on and have a few beers. Thank you for persevering with what I suspect was an incredibly boring video.